But I remember calling him and crying and begging him. I said, Dad, you've got to stop this because she's going to take me and I'm going to be leaving. And I don't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he really, he woke up after that, because then we weren't going to move. And he kind of calmed down with, being just so nasty and just saying all this stuff, but I think if I hadn't done that, I don't know if he would have been like, okay, maybe I need to chill out a little bit.
Welcome to episode 280 of the Nacho Kids podcast.
What you got for us today?
Well, we are in the midst of our guided change your thinking challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going well. We've had a few little hiccups, but we got those straight. So now we're going good.
Yep. It's always fun going back through these things and, because we're kind of recreating some of it. So it's fun. It's fun to go back through and rehash all the stuff we've learned.
Well, I was thinking that it might be a good idea for us next week for our podcast for us to do another Let's Tell You Our Story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I don't know that people are going to go back to episode 1.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do that next week.
We'll see if any of the stories changed.
Yeah. We might should listen to the first story.
Do we remember this exactly right?
Yeah. All right. So our guest today is a repeat guest, Stepmom Keri. She was previously on podcast 270. This is her second blend. She has an Hours daughter who's 5, couple of stepkids, and her husband is supportive of her nachoing. And she is also an Hours baby herself.
Okay. That always brings a different perspective.
Yeah, that's why I wanted her back on here so much. So that's all I'm telling you right now, folks.
All right. Well, cool. So before we get to listening, I do want to say that as we are recording this, which is October 9th, tomorrow, me and Lori celebrate 15 years.
Wow.
I know. Ain't that crazy?
Should we start a GoFundMe for me to leave?
15 years in this blended bliss.
Oh, man. What a ride. What a ride. Yep, you're right. You're right. It is our anniversary this week. 15 years. Oh, that would be perfect for us to talk about next week then.
Yeah. Did y'all catch that? Like I said, there was a day that was our anniversary, but you said there was a week that was our anniversary.
Did I say that?
You said it's our anniversary this week. I said it's our anniversary tomorrow.
Right. Well,
that's how you do your birthday. You do your birthday the same way. You're like, it's my birthday week.
No.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Okay.
Anyway, happy anniversary, honey. A day early.
Happy anniversary, David.
So looking forward to 15 more at least.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Prayers are needed. Thank you very much. All right, let's get to listening.
All right.
Today we have Stepmom Keri. Hey, Keri, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Lori?
Good. Now, Keri, you were on our podcast, episode 270.
Wow.
And now you're back.
I am back. Yes.
You had to come back. We had to talk. We found out at the end that you were an Hours baby. We're like, what?
I know. We chatted for so long, and then there was just still so much that we didn't get to.
Right. So for those of you who have not listened to episode 270, you need to do so. But just to give people a brief synopsis, you are in your second blend. So stepson 18 is not your husband's biological child.
Correct. Yeah.
Stepdaughter 10 is.
Mm-hmm.
And you have an Hours daughter 5.
Yes.
And how often do you have stepdaughter 10?
We have her 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. She actually just went back to her mom a couple days ago.
That's right, because I remember thinking that's such an awesome schedule for her.
Yeah, it is great. And I do think that she really likes it and she thrives it. Sometimes she will ask, can I stay a third week? Can we do 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long time without her. And I think that mom doesn't really want to do that. And,
Yeah.
my husband is happy with the schedule as is. So, and a lot of times it's because, there's going to be a family party or something. So we just ask, bio mom, can we just pick her up for the day, so that she can be involved in the family party and things like that.
Right. And bio mom's cool with that.
She is. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to talk about you.
Okay.
Because we could go back and talk about even more stuff about, add on to what we talked about last time. But I want to talk about you this time.
Okay.
So you were an hours baby.
Yes. Yes, I was. Let me see. My parents got together and had me when my brothers were 18, 15, 8, and 7. So all boys.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
So you feel
like,
my
right?
pain.
Yeah. I was like, what that's like.
Right.
So my oldest brother, 18, he was my dad's or is my dad's. And he wasn't really around much. I didn't grow up with him. He and my dad weren't very close. So I very much had a really strong bond with my other brothers, 15, 8, and 7.
Mm-hmm.
They were my moms. And so I saw them a lot more. They would go to their dads not very often, because they got to an age, I think they were like 10 or so, or, they had a stepmom, they didn't like stepmom and, all of that.
She wasn't nachoing. That's why.
She was not nachoing. Yeah. This was the early 90s,
Yeah.
So then, so I came along and yeah, my mom was so thrilled because I was the girl finally.
Yeah, I bet she was.
She wasn't. And my dad was actually, because his oldest was 18. So my dad started the whole thing over again at 41.
Wow.
Having a little baby. Yeah.
David said it was hard for him to consider starting over with Jackson, and there was only a 5-year difference.
Yeah. It's hard, when you think, it's amazing having kids. There are so many blessings, but sometimes like for myself, I've only had the one.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a little bit about maybe having, another one. But then once I finished the potty training phase, I said, I am never doing that again. I was like, and that is all she wrote for me, because I am done doing
no more diapers in my life.
Yeah. And like just the whole potty training phase, that was rough.
Was it that bad?
It was rough, like waking up in the middle of the night and, changing all the sheets. I started to layer, and like I had like, all those little pads and everything. I had triple layers of sheets just so I could wake up and rip the top layer off and put her back in bed. Like I was just like, oh my goodness. Like it was just, that was hard. And then when she would stand there and just pee on the couch, I thought, oh my Lord, this is my couch.
I know. Thank goodness I didn't go through that.
Yeah, I know. Like we tried a lot of things because, like every kid is different, and they say, like,
yep.
Do the no diaper phase and just have them without anything, and we tried that, and they got
she just
pee all over my couch. Yeah.
She's like, this don't faze me a bit.
Yeah. So I wasn't having any of that. And it just, I don't know. It was a rough summer, because also being a teacher was like, I can't really commit to this until I've got enough time to try to get a good schedule for her.
Right.
So, it was a rough summer. Back to me. So I was an hours baby. My parents, they didn't stay together too long when I was young. They ended up getting back together and getting married when I was 10.
All right. So let's talk about that. Let's back up. Okay. So you were born.
Yep.
Your parents stayed together until you were how old?
3. Until
right.
I was 3. Yeah.
And then split.
And they split. Yeah.
And then they got back together when you were 10.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah. And, now that I'm grown, I've spoken with my mother about it, because I wasn't thrilled at 10. I wasn't thrilled because we had to move. Like we like my dad lived, an hour away, and we moved where he was. By then my brothers were, I think the youngest one, he was about to be 18. So, he was basically done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was not thrilled. I did not want to leave my friends. I didn't want to do all that, and like I had memories when I was very little, 3 years old. I had memories of them arguing. I could hear that in my mind. And I thought, I do not want to do this. Like, what is happening?
Right. Like, Mama, do you not remember this stuff? Because I do.
Yeah. And she ended up telling me later, I got back together with him because for you, I wanted us to be together. And I said, well, you could have asked me because I didn't want that,
Now, that's interesting because a lot of times people think these kids want their parents back together.
Right.
And Jackson has never known his dad and I together.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him one day, I said, do you ever wish or think about, oh, what if my mom and dad were together? He looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, no, that could never happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. But I know with my parents, when they split up when I was 30,
Mm-hmm.
I did kind of want them back together because it
Yeah.
made life easier for us
Mm-hmm.
as kids.
Yeah.
Just because of there was that bickering and name calling back and forth. And then the whole,
Yeah.
where are you going? Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
but you were a lot younger.
I was. Yeah, I was. And, it was also a time where I feel like most of my friends, they all were, what's the opposite of the blended? What do you guys call that?
Nuclear.
A nuclear. Yeah. So they all, they had mom and dad and everything was honky dory for them. But I was like, no, like things are fine. I like this. I see my dad. When I see my dad, he would come down and see me, and I would, I want to say, I don't know what the visitation was for him when they weren't together, because it wasn't very often. I did have a real rough time leaving my mom.
Mm-hmm.
We would call on the phone every day, and I'd be crying. She'd be like, 2 more days, baby, just 2 more days. And I'm like, okay, even though, my dad was great. I was such a daddy's girl. We would get an ice cream. He was Disney dad.
Mm-hmm. But still, it was hard being away from mom.
It was, it was very difficult to be away from my mom. And then that's what's funny. It's funny and also kind of sad. That was another thing that I didn't want to change, because until I was 10 years old and they got back together, I was still sleeping in the bed with my mama.
Oh,
I was. Yeah. We were just so close, like after they split up, I was the only girl, and, she had her baby girl, and we were just, 2 peas in a pod.
and y'all just living life up.
We were. And I was not trying to have things change.
Right. It was just y'all.
It was, yeah. And like I said, I remember hearing them fighting and stuff when I was real little. So I didn't really know what to expect. And they got married, and that only lasted 4 years before it didn't work anymore.
Okay. So they got divorced again.
They got divorced. Well, they had never gotten married the first time.
Oh, okay.
But they got divorced. And then I was like, okay, well, now this is final. It wasn't. By the way, spoiler alert, it was not.
What?
No, yeah.
Okay. So they got married when you were 10. They split up when you were 14?
Yeah, they got divorced when I was 14.
Okay.
And then I kind of, at that point, I had made my friends, and I kind of begged my mama, please don't move us, back down to where we had come from,
Right.
I said, please, let me just finish high school. Let me finish high school. I had just started, I was a freshman, and I was just loving it. We were close to the school, and I did not want to leave again.
Yeah.
And
you had just built these relationships.
I had, yeah. And she agreed, thankfully. She agreed. She didn't love it, but she agreed to let me stay there. Because I also was like, well, I didn't ask you to marry this man.
Right.
And because we were so close, that is kind of how I talked to my mama. I was just like, mama, like, you could have just said something, because I would have been like, maybe it's not the best idea.
Right. Because to me, and I know this is not really what happened, but to me, it's like you woke up one day and your mama said, like, me and your dad are getting back together. Pack up. We're moving.
Right. Yeah. And that's, from a kid's perspective, that's how it was. I was like out of left field all of a sudden. I'm like, what?
Right. Right.
So she stayed, and then I graduated high school. I started college. I still stayed nearby because I did not want to leave. I wanted to be near my mama. I stayed close. And over the years, they would, oh, I'm talking to your dad again. And I'd be like, oh, Lord, don't tell me this, mama. So that's what it was for a long while. Another decade after that was a back and forth kind of, thing, My dad's very old fashioned, he's 78 now, and he's old fashioned. And my mom, even though she's also in her early 70s, she was very independent. She did raise us mostly by herself. So He's very independent, and they're both very strong-headed. And I was like, y'all, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, if it hasn't by now, like you guys just it's okay. Like, you don't have to keep at it if you're just
It's
not
okay
happy.
to give up.
Right. Like, if you're just not happy together, it's okay. So I think finally, that ship has sailed for for them. Although I do wish my dad had somebody, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
it's hard.
hard when they're older and
It is. It's really hard.
you
Yeah.
feel like they're alone. Is your mom with somebody else now?
She is with somebody. Yeah. She's been with somebody about 5 or 6 years now, but she's still very independent. And luckily, this guy is just cool with letting my mom run the show, because
Mhm.
that's just kind of how she is, that she needed somebody who was okay with that because she wasn't changing.
Yeah, that's like I would tell people that I'm kind of in between. Like with
Mhm.
David, I need David to be man enough to stand up to me
Right.
if I get out of line.
Uh-huh. Yep.
It's not that I wear the pants. We share the pants.
Yep. That's how we are too. We share the pants. But my parents are just two very, very strong personalities. And it just didn't work.
Yeah. So what about the man that your mom's dating or with? They live
Yes,
together, I guess.
they do. Yes. I mean, he's just a nice, calm man. I like him a lot. I do. One thing I will say, like growing up, anytime there was another man, I was very against it. I was like, ain't nobody gonna date my mama, So, and I was the same way with my dad too. Anytime he had somebody, I was awful. I'm not proud of that.
Well, it's funny because I was going to ask you that. I'm like, surely your mom dated in between that time frame.
Yeah, she did. Not a lot, but when there was, I was reserved. I was never, I was raised, I was not going to be rude or disrespectful to anybody, but I didn't open myself up to anyone that either of my parents ever really dated.
Yeah.
But it's different now, after having been divorced myself and going through everything I've been through. Once she started dating this gentleman, I realized, you know what, I need to not be like that. There ain't no reason for me to act like a child. And so he's a very, very nice man. I like him a lot.
Good.
Yeah.
No, they're not married though.
They are not married. No, my mama, she's like, I'm not getting married again. That's what she's like, nope, I'm not doing it. So I'm
Can't
like,
blame her.
yeah. I was like, okay, like as long as you're happy.
Right. Yeah. So did you ever officially have like a stepmom?
No, I never did.
I mean, when I say officially, I mean like,
I
did your
know what you
dad date
mean.
somebody for? Yeah.
No, my dad has never been with anyone serious, honestly, aside from my mother.
Really?
Yeah, he has had.
She ruined him.
And he has said outright, like, your mother is the only person, that I would
Oh,
ever want. I know it is hard. It like he crushes my heart sometimes with that, like your mother's the only one for me. And
oh,
I'm like, oh, daddy, like. But
yeah.
no, he's never had a real serious relationship or anyone that I've really met more than a few times. But honestly, and I don't know it could be the fact that he really is just still in love with my mother. But I also think he is just a hard man to get along with,
Yeah.
Like, I know this man. He is a retired Marine Corps, veteran and everything.
Oh, yeah.
He is a tough man.
Yeah. That just tells you how tough your mom is.
Right. Yeah. You're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, before y'all moved
Hmm.
with your dad, you said most of your friends had nuclear families.
Yeah.
And I know this is asking you to think way back.
Hmm.
Not that you're that old or old. But do you remember feeling odd that your parents weren't together or like you were missing out on something? Or do you remember how you felt
Yeah.
then?
Yeah. I did feel different. I also, like, when I was born, my mom gave me my dad's last name, and they weren't married, so she didn't have that name. And my brothers and my mom, they all had the same name. And I always felt weird about that. I felt different when I would go and be with my friends and everything, and I would see both parents, like, I wondered if there was something that I was missing, and
Right.
and if I would ever have that kind of feeling. But I'm not big with change. So it was one of those things where it's like, I was curious, but I was like, this is how my life is, and I'm okay with that. But I did kind of wonder, like, if how things were and what it was like to have both parents in the house.
Right. Because regardless of how often you went to your dad's, you had to go to your dad's.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they would go home and both parents are there, or there's events at school and both parents are there,
Yeah.
or
That
dad's
was,
and donuts and dad's there. Or,
yeah. Yeah. I do remember that. It was tough as a little girl, to think about that stuff. But, my dad did show up to a lot of things. He would always be the one taking me to my appointments and things like that, and taking off work and just coming to pick me up and, take me out for the day and things like that. So I did feel like, I also had a little something that other kids didn't have.
Right. Well, you got 2 birthdays, girl, and 2 Christmases.
Yeah. I did have that, so that was just the life I had.
Well, I was going to say you didn't know any different, but you did know different a little bit.
Kind of, yeah. So like, I remember a lot of the negative stuff from when I was like little, real little, like I remember that stuff and the arguing and
Yeah.
things like that. I didn't remember a lot of positive things.
Right. And that's normal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For our brain to remember the bad because it
Yeah.
wants to protect us. And so
Mm-hmm.
something happens and it filters through our emotions first. And then it looks down and goes, oh, wait a minute, this happened to you before and this is how you felt.
Right.
So you have all these feelings. But it's funny you brought that up because I was listening to somebody earlier and they were talking about the EMDR. It's like some kind of therapy where I think that's right. Maybe I said it backwards, but some kind of therapy where I'm going to relate it to hypnosis. And I know anybody that knows anything about it is going to say, no, that's not what it is. But it's something with your eyes. And a friend of mine did it. Her mom died when she was a teenager. And so when she did this EMDR thing, it made her have memories of her mom.
Oh, wow.
She was able to see what her mom looked like again.
Oh.
But the bad thing is most of them are traumatic memories.
Okay.
So like the memory of her seeing her mom was her dad carrying her out of the house away from her
Oh,
mom.
Goodness. Okay. Yeah.
And I'm thinking the bad memories I've got now, I don't want to dig no deeper for nothing else.
Yeah, definitely not. No.
Yeah, I don't, no. I remember that too with my mom and dad.
Yeah.
Is the negative. And especially with my mom, I don't remember a lot of positive things about her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is sad. I remember even when they got back together, so from 10 to 14, I still remember a lot of the negative.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember some positives here and there, but, what stands out the most is the negative.
Right. Do you remember them fighting during that 10 to 14 year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I remember. And I remember what it was like the first, I want to say like the last 3 or 4 months before everything was like officially done and things like that. Like I remember crying to my dad. I called him because my mom was like, we're moving. Like, this is it. We're moving back to where, we were. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And it was because my dad was just being so nasty. He was just being so awful. And so I called him, and again, being a man from the South, like there's just things you don't talk to your parents about, there's a place for a child and a place for, a grown folk.
Right.
But
and what's funny is those lines are blurred so much.
Yeah. It is true. Yeah, they are. They totally are. But I remember calling him and crying and begging him. I said, Dad, you've got to stop this because she's going to take me and I'm going to be leaving. And I don't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he really, he woke up after that, because then we weren't going to move. And he kind of calmed down with, being just so nasty and just saying all this stuff, but I think if I hadn't done that, I don't know if he would have been like, okay, maybe I need to chill out a little bit. Because then when they what was difficult, because I had, when they split up, at 14, then we did an actual every other weekend, I was going to my dad's. And it was like an actual routine thing, because we hadn't had that when I was little.
Right.
It was only sometimes I would go and, I would see him, and there was no real schedule. But this time it was every other weekend you're going to your dad's.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
and how far did y'all move away from him?
We were only a mile.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we only moved a mile because I wanted to still go to the same school. I didn't want to leave,
Right.
So we weren't far at all, which worked out nicely once I got my license. I was 16, and I remember one time my dad and I got into an argument, and I was being sassy. He would always tell me, you don't sass me,
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm leaving. And I just got in my car and drove away and went and told my mom how much of a turd he was being and everything. And and then he comes over and my mom and dad are laughing and everything. Oh, man, I was like, oh, not this again,
Yeah. So, well, that's great that you were only a mile away, because I think it would have been traumatic for you to have to go away from your friends again every other weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was nice because I was still able to do the things that I had planned and hang out with my friends. And I don't think I ever had any like friends come over to like spend the night or nothing once they split up.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times I just wanted to go someone else's place.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I don't want to be home. I just want to go somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. Anywhere but home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you started driving,
mm-hmm.
I guess they kind of didn't make you stick to that every other weekend as much.
I did. I tried to stay with that, because with my parents not together, like my dad and I have a wonderful relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We are very, very close. I am still a daddy's girl. We talk every single week.
It sounds like you were a mama's girl too, though.
Yeah, I am. I'm so close with both my parents.
I wonder if that's an hours baby thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. But we are very, very close. I'm close with my dad. I'm close with my mom. Like it's so like I did enjoy my time at my dad's. Even though I was a teenager, I have positive memories of spending time with my dad when they weren't together. So like I have a lot of those positive memories.
Yeah. When you separate the memories of them together,
mm-hmm.
you have more positive memories.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's with your mom and dad, it's like they love each other. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they love each other, but it's just not a healthy relationship.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That is exactly it. They, because my mama has said too, she's like, I love him, but we don't work together, living together.
Mm-hmm. Like oil and water or fire and gasoline.
Yeah. Probably fire and gasoline.
Yeah. Now, what about your relationship with your brothers? Or I guess they're your half brothers.
They are my half brothers. And I didn't really learn what that was until my parents got married again. And I was 10, and I was like, oh, like I knew they had a different name. I didn't understand the half thing.
Right. That's confusing.
It is confusing. Yeah. But we're close. I don't chat with them as we like have a group chat,
mm-hmm.
So like we'll send, text messages to each other and call each other on our birthdays and stuff. We're close. I'm closer still with my brothers on my mom's side than my oldest brother on my dad's side. But after my dad got sick about 8 years ago, I made it a point to reach out to my oldest brother and be like, look, like we need to have a relationship. We need to be in contact because, dad's getting older and at some point we're going to have to work together, when he's gone. So, we do regularly chat now only about once a month or so, but it's a good relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what I was going to ask you a minute ago because you had mentioned this before about the last names.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when I was pregnant with Jackson, and for anybody that doesn't know, Jackson's dad and I had split up before I found out I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So like split up, week later, find out I'm pregnant. And I struggled with what last name to give him.
Mm-hmm.
And even some of his relatives were like, give him your last name.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know. Some were like hyphenate it and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And it just didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know where this started with the kid getting the last name and the wife taking the man's last name, but that's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, I'm not his wife, so I don't have his last name, but I just felt like that was his kid,
Right. Yeah.
And so, of course, everywhere you call, hey, this is Lori Sims, Jackson's blank's mom.
Right.
And it feels awkward. And the other day, I was thinking about getting this thing that goes at the bottom of your Christmas tree. It's a piece of metal and it's got the name on it instead of trying to do a tree stand and all that stuff. But anyway, long story short, I'm like, I can't because I'm not going to get mine and David's and his kid's last name and leave my son out.
Right. Yeah. Ugh.
Now, granted, we had the same last letter, so that's good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I can get stuff with S's on it all day long. But, you can't get something with Sims home. That doesn't how's that make my son feel?
Right.
And I don't know that it makes him feel any way.
Right.
But David's dad had put a sign at the end of our driveway to show which way his sister lives for deliveries and which way we live. And so he just put their last name and ours. And I'm like, you got to put Jackson's on there too. And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's him.
Yeah.
So I get that having a different last name, how it affected me being the parent. I don't know. I'll have to ask Jackson if he's ever thought about, having a different last name than I have.
Yeah.
He'll probably say, no, why you bring up crap to make me think about and worry about?
Probably. Yeah. I will say, like, I was so happy when my husband and I, finally got married, because then I was going to change my name, and then we were all going to have the same name. Then I could do those things of, the blank family, and like,
Right.
I was just so excited and thrilled for that. And as I said, when I was little, it felt odd. I felt different from my brothers, and they all have names with an M. And my mom named me with the same initials as my dad. So it was just one more thing. I was like, I'm the only K, I just felt so. And even though my mom's name isn't with an M, I was like, well, she's mom, which is an M, So.
Yeah. Anything you could find to make it seem like you were different. Yeah.
Yeah. But then as I got a little bit older, then I was like, oh, well, I'm unique. I'm special. I'm the only one with these initials. And I kind of grew into it of finding the beauty in being different. But it's hard when you're a child.
Yeah, but Keri, that's the whole thing with life. You changed your perspective on it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the whole nacho philosophy.
Yeah,
changing
you're so
your perspective. Yeah, and so you decided, instead of looking at my last name as I'm different in a bad way, I'm looking at it as I'm different in a good way.
Yep. Yeah.
It's still, though, I think for women, I might be wrong, it's easier because we're used to having our names changed.
Right. Yeah. I'm hearing that some people aren't doing it as much anymore, which, I mean, to each their own. Well, let me tell you, when I got married the first time, and it must have been some sort of gut feeling,
I did change your name.
I did change his name, or change my name, but I changed my middle name to my maiden name.
Okay.
So, because I was like, well, I'm still always going to be this.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
So I did that. But then this time I was like, no, I'm okay. For some reason, I didn't feel like I needed to hang on to that. But the first time I definitely did. I definitely felt like, you know what? Let me just keep my name.
Did you go to your middle name now?
I went back to my original middle name after I got married the second time. I wanted that name back.
Well, kids today have like 4 names.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if anybody that's listening to this, their kids have 4 names, but I remember a lady at work, her daughter was pregnant, and I said, well, what is she going to name him? And she said it, and I was like, is that his last name? She's like, no, that's his first and 2 middle names. I'm like, you can have 2 middle names?
No. Yeah, you're so right. I have a lot of students with where I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of names.
Yeah. Yeah, I kept my maiden name too as my middle name.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That used to be a really big thing. And, my mother is Mexican, and in the Mexican culture, that's a huge thing, but also when you have children, the children also get both names as well. But I didn't do none of that. That was too much.
Yeah. As a ours kid,
hmm
do you feel like it helped prepare you having an ours daughter?
Um, I mean, maybe subconsciously, because I don't know. I feel like just the way I remember my life being just in a family where there was fighting and toxicity. Like I just knew how much a child's brain can really hold on to that you kind of don't think about. So I think just as a parent, it just kind of shaped me to remember how it was as a child, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's tied to the fact that I was an hours baby or anything like that. I think it's just, I don't know. I did feel like knowing that my dad was with my mom and she had these three boys, and, he was stepdad to them for, a bunch of years. I did feel like if I was going to be with somebody and I was going to be a step parent, then I was going to have to step up and I was going to have to fill in those holes.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that, what, those aren't my holes to fill,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
but so that seeing my dad do those things and be that type of stepdad and step in those ways, that affected me as a step parent, I think, more than the hours baby thing. I think.
Yeah. Because dad was stepdad
hmm
to your brothers.
Yeah.
See, that just, once you start talking about this, it's like it needs a flow chart.
It does. Yeah.
But as a stepdad, did he treat y'all the same as far as you could see?
He did.
And I
Yeah.
know you were a girl, and that makes a huge difference,
It
though.
does. Yeah. But yes, I do, from what I can remember and from what I saw, he treated them the same.
Right.
He really did. And one of my brothers still talks to my dad regularly. He's told me, like, that my dad was there for him. Not so much when his dad wasn't, but just that he was a person that was there.
An additional person.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's
Uh,
good.
yeah. So, my dad was a big inspiration for me as being, for on how I started out being a step parent.
Right.
But, it was different. It was definitely different.
Yeah.
But I've learned.
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, if nothing else, being a step parent gives you so much wisdom.
hmm Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's we've had some difficult years, but I was just telling my husband last week before stepdaughter went back to her mom's, like, I think things are going well. Like, I don't feel in my heart the way I would sometimes feel when it was time for her to come, or when it was time for her to leave. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo.
Took more hours.
Yeah, like there was a time where it was like a countdown, where
Yes.
I'm like, oh my goodness, but I don't feel that as much anymore, and I'm so grateful. And I don't think I would feel that way if I hadn't experienced, that opposite feeling and learned so much of how to really do this without or with adding some boundaries in.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's
Now,
nice.
so stepdaughter 10, ours daughter
hmm
5.
hmm
Stepdaughter 10 goes to mom's. We talked about this, 2 weeks on, 2
Yeah.
weeks off.
hmm
Do you see any difference? And I might have asked you this, but I can't remember. Do you see any difference in how your husband parents those 2 kids?
Yes, I do. And I think some of it has to do with the age difference. But like
Mhm.
sometimes I'll tell him, why are you being so hard on her? Like
On the
'cause
stepdaughter?
on the stepdaughter. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
and I know that he knows based off of what stepdaughter has said that, because she's the baby over there at mom's.
Yeah.
So he feels like she gets babied a lot. And he wants her to be able to do things for herself here that she might not be expected to do there. And so he will get onto her sometimes about things, and and I'm just kind of like, like, just it's going to be okay. Like, things are different for her here, and we have to communicate our expectations on how we want things.
Right.
And I say we, but I tell him, you gonna be doing all that.
Yeah.
Just you have to communicate that, and find a way to say that in a different way. You don't want to push her away or alienate her or make her feel bad. Things like that. So, and I don't know if that's because she's twice as old as ours baby. I don't know.
Yeah. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. Exactly. Yeah. We'll see how it is when our little one turns 10.
Yeah. Because, of course, like everything else, it can go one of two ways, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So right now, he's harsher on bio daughter.
Yeah.
But he could kick into guilty parent syndrome next week.
Yeah.
And be lenient on daughter.
Yeah.
And then that guilty parent syndrome, sometimes it intensifies when the hours kid is brought into the picture. Now, I know your daughter's 5, because they look at the hours kid and like, you have your family. And then they look at their other kid, you come from a broken home. So then they feel guiltier for having the hours kid. And so then that guilty parent syndrome just goes crazy toward this. I want to say the step kid, but you know what I mean? The other bio.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But then a lot of times too, and I know you've seen it where a stepmom complains about the dad not being strict enough on the kids. Then they have an hours kid 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. The dad's really strict on them. And they're like, what the crap? You weren't strict with your other kids. And I'm like, well, quit complaining, because that's what you wanted him to do the first time.
Right. Yeah.
Do you want him to have guilty parent syndrome with your kid and not parent them? No. Yeah.
Yep. And I will say that I try to make a conscious effort, not to scold my daughter, but to make sure that I will get on her with the things that could possibly be gotten onto. Like I want my stepdaughter to see me reprimanding my daughter for whenever I feel like she's out of line with stepdaughter, where I'm like, you don't say things to her like that, like you need to give her a chance, and like things like that, because I don't want stepdaughter to feel like she's always the one that's getting harped on.
Right. Whereas Branson, I don't know if you listen to that podcast, but he talks about, I think it was the first podcast he ever did with us. He talks about how things changed with him and me when Jackson said something happened, and he said something happened, and I believe Jackson.
Yeah.
He said that's when it was like, oh, she's always going to choose him. And of course, he couldn't understand it as a kid.
Right.
But as a parent, if you've got your step kid in front of you telling you something, and your bio kid in front of you telling you something, who you going to believe?
Right. And you know what? And I did listen to that one, because that was something that I thought about hard when I thought, you know what, like, I want to make sure that that's not how she feels. And I want to hear both of your guys' sides, and both of you are going to, I'm going to talk to both of y'all,
Right.
so that nobody feels like there's any sides being taken.
Right. And I'm glad that you're conscious of that.
Yeah. I really try.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of things now that we're still learning. When we had him on the podcast recently, it was, I thought I was doing a good thing by not giving Jackson presents in front of them, because they were at their mom's getting all kind of stuff. And Jackson's dad wasn't like that. So, of course, I bought more for Jackson. I wouldn't give it to him when they were here.
Right.
But I didn't know as soon as they came back. He's like, look what my mom got me last week while y'all were at your mom's.
Yeah.
So, of course, like Branson said, from a kid's perspective, it doesn't matter what they got at their mom's. It's that I didn't get them anything. I'm like, but you got twice as much at your mom's. He's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I screwed that one up.
You tried, you did. You tried. The kids will find anyway.
And that has nothing to do with nachoing, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't want people to go, oh, well, you were nachoing and that's why you didn't buy them stuff. No, I bought them stuff.
Yeah.
I just bought my kid more stuff.
Yeah.
And still didn't even probably balance out what his kids got.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's hard because it's that whole fair thing.
Yeah. It is, yeah.
Now, one day your daughter, she might have already done it. Has she asked you why her sister gets 2 birthdays and 2 Christmases? And
She has not done that yet. She hasn't.
Watch this Christmas and you're going to be
I
like,
know,
darn
right?
it, Lori.
She probably will. I'm sure it's around the corner. I'm sure it is. Well, because, and I haven't heard stepdaughter say like, well, because sometimes she'll be like, well, I'm going to have that at my mom's.
Right.
But my daughter is sassy. So she'd be like, well, you go ahead and have it at your mom's. Like, that's how she would say it.
Yeah. You're going to be like, well, when you leave, we party all the time.
And I can totally see her saying some nonsense like that too, and just being like, "Oh goodness, I'm sure it's coming," because they're girls, and I hear them arguing, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness,
yeah,
it's gonna be coming soon."
I don't know if David's kids remember this or not, but I remember they thought that once we dropped them off at their mom's for that week, that we just lived it up. Like we went out to eat steak every night and lobster, just.
Yeah.
And then when they're here, we're making them eat spaghetti.
Right.
But in their minds, we were living it up when they were gone.
Yeah. In the beginning, stepdaughter, every time she would come back, she'd be like, "What'd you guys do while I was gone? What'd you do?" Like she wanted to know, like, what were all the fun, awesome things that we did? And we'd be like, "We didn't do nothing. We did the same thing we're always doing."
Yeah.
But for a long time, she did ask that.
Well, let me ask you this. How would your husband feel? Now, we know he supports not showing, but how would he feel if you wanted to take your hours baby on vacation without stepdaughter?
We've actually had to do that before, and he hasn't expressed any type of negative feelings towards that.
Okay.
Now, I'll say that the trip that we took was back to California to see my family. And it was during the time when stepdaughter was at her mom's. And so the three of us went, and he himself explained to stepdaughter, like, we're going to see, Keri's family. And that's your sister's family too. And, you're going to be at your mom's. And so we're going to take this trip because she needs to see her family, And so that's kind of how he framed it. And he's also said, like, things are going to happen when you're not with us, just like you do things at your mom's and, we're not a part of that. And that's, we have to just continue living our lives.
Yep.
So that's what he has said. So I don't think he has any negative feelings towards that. And part of him is probably like, well, it saves me a little bit of money.
Yeah. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll say, like, we've had those, a couple of trips to see my family, but because I do the planning for, over the summer, I always plan something where she's going to be with us. Like, we're going to do this family trip as a family, the four of us, because I know that she's not doing any of that with her mom.
So her mom, not in another relationship?
She's not at the moment.
Okay.
That changes, but she doesn't talk with her family. I think I mentioned this before. She's not close with her family.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. Her mom's, very much a recluse, so that they don't go out much or do things. So she knows that she gets to go out and do things when she's with us. And I try to make sure that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really good.
I try. She told us, and it probably meant nothing to her when she said it, but it hurt my heart when she told us this last time she was with us. She says, "Oh yeah, mommy makes dinner and she gives me my plate and I take my plate into my room. And then mama takes her plate into her room and we eat separately."
Oh.
And I was like, what? Like,
yeah, why don't you go eat in mommy's room with mommy?
Yeah. And she said, and I even said that, and she said, "Oh, sometimes I'll do and we'll watch something, but usually I just eat by myself." And and again, she meant nothing. Like, she doesn't know, or maybe she does, but she didn't seem to feel any type of way about it.
Right. But to me and you, we're sad for both of them.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, she's 10. Like, she ain't 16, like, it hurt my heart.
Yeah. And
it also kind of made me realize, because, we sit down to dinner, all of us together every night, and we share how our day was, a good thing and a bad thing. And we do that. That's like our thing. And like, sometimes she's like talking. And I'm like, "Girl, will you just be quiet so I can eat my food?" But after she said that, then it made me think about all those times when she has been, little chatty Cathy at the dinner table. And I'm thinking, oh, it's because she ain't communicating or talking with nobody at her mom's.
Yeah.
And that's why she's acting like that.
Exactly.
So it gave me pause, and I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to be here for this girl as much as I can.
Isn't it great though when you can stop, look at something as being an annoyance or whatever in a negative way, and you can look at it with sympathy and with the realization of she's acting this way because when she's with her mom, she has no interaction with anybody at dinner time.
Yeah.
She's obviously enjoying having dinner with y'all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gives you a different perspective on it once you know things that are going on that you wouldn't have known otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. Which again, it made me real sad to hear, but it made me, I'm happy and grateful that I learned that because it changed my mindset.
Yeah. Yep. And if you wouldn't have known that, you'd have still been like, my gosh.
I would have still been like, girl, like, let me eat.
But now with knowing that when she does it, it can still annoy you.
Right.
But you've got that compassion.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And it makes a huge difference.
It does. It really, really does.
Well, Keri, thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm glad that we finally got our schedules synced up so we can do it again. I've been looking forward to chatting with you.
Yes, and I think that you put in your calendar for 5 years down the road again.
I will put that in my Google Calendar.
So on September 17th, 2029, you're going to be like, there's something I'm supposed to be doing. And it's going to drive you crazy and you'll never remember it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it in my calendar and be like, reach out to Keri.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, Keri who?
Yeah. Yeah. I better put more than just Keri. Well, thanks again. You have a great day.
Thanks so much. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. We hope you enjoyed that interview with Keri. And I do want to say that we will release the next guided boot camp challenge in January.
All right, cool. Get everybody started on the right foot for the new year.
That's right.
Yeah. Don't make resolutions, make changes.
Yep. Let's not go there yet, David. We're still in October.
I want to bring up in the intro, we talked about our anniversary, and you always say that blended years are like dog years. So I did the math, and we're celebrating 105 years together.
Yay! Now that's exciting.
Yep, it is. So if anybody's got any ideas of what I should get Lori for our 105th anniversary, let me know.
Flu Vogs.
Oh my gosh. I think I've already done that for your anniversary, unbeknownst to me.
All right. We will talk about flu vogs later. Don't forget, if you are not happy in your blend, join the Nacho Kids Academy, put the work in, and change your life. And if you want to be a guest on our podcast, email me at Lori, Lori, at nachokids.com and say, hey, chick, I want to be on your podcast. All right, wrap it up, David.
All right. So until next week, we are done for today. So remember, life is good
when you nacho.